I was telling you earlier, my wife come to see me. And this is a song she's part of. I come from Portland, Oregon. I think I've told you that a million times probably, but that's where I come from. It's pretty rainy out there. If you've never been out there, very green, very rainy. A lot of, you can drive like a half hour from Portland. You can ski in the snow, or you can drive a half hour and from Portland, or no, an hour, I should say, be on the beach. And I'm always bragging about where I'm from to my wife. She's from New York City. She grew up in Manhattan. Anyway, I went one time about 3 years ago. We saved up some money for our vacation, and me and my wife decided to go to see my mom, who lives just below Coos Bay, Oregon, on the coast in this town called Port Orford, Oregon. And if you want to go to Port Orford, Oregon by car, you got to drive through a town called Tillamook, and you got to go through a place called Tillamook County. So me and my wife, we rented a car and we started driving down to see my mom on vacation. And on one of the days of my vacation, I had a lot of time to think about things. And I came up with, this is my vacation song. Sitting there waiting in the Tillamook County jail, hoping that she's not so bad now that she doesn't even pay my bail. If I was her, I'm not so sure I wouldn't keep on moving down the trail. Sitting here waiting in the Tillamook County jail. Got a lump on my head and a boot print on my chest from what these guys in here call the Tillamook County lie detector test. Well, I did my best, but as you might have guessed, it is a tough test not to fail. I'm sitting here waiting in the Tillamook County jail. One phone call, 2 Tylenol, 4 cold gray walls closing in. If I ever do get out on that highway again, I ain't never going back to Tillamook County. It all started when I had a little trouble with this guy on the highway crew. And that lying son of a gun, he told him I done some things that I didn't do. They came running for me down 101, lights flashing on my trail. Sitting here waiting in the Tillamook County jail. One phone call, 2 Tylenol, 4 cold gray walls closing in. If I ever do get out on that highway again, I ain't ever going back to Tillamook County. Never going back to Tillamook County. Sitting there waiting in the Tillamook County jail, still hoping that she's not so mad now that she doesn't even pay my bail. If I was her, I'm not so sure I wouldn't keep on moving down the trail. Sitting here waiting in the Tillamook County jail. But come down on vacation, gonna leave on probation, have to send all my money through the mail. Send all my money to Tillamook. I'll probably have to send at least half of tonight's money to Tillamook County jail. That's a true story. Unfortunately, almost everything I'm telling you tonight is true. I went down to Tillamook County with my wife on vacation, and it turned into a big fiasco. And then it turned into this deal where I had to do 20 hours of community service. And I fucked it up, and they said they wanted 40 hours of community service, which is twice the community service. It was a miscommunication. They said they wanted me to teach kids about drugs. I should have been more specific. I was showing him how to make a bong out of an apple. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that shit too. I'll do that shit too. I kind of already got a plan on this particular one. I was gonna do this one for my wife, and she came with me on this New Year's, and my wife and I met. I've been lying about where we met for like 8 years. And then last year, I don't know if you guys were going to come to the show last year, but I had to go to the hospital because I'm an idiot. And like with those hospitals where your friends all gather around and like circle you in a room and tell you you're an asshole, and then the next thing you know, you're in another group of people and holding hands in circles and shit like that. Nevertheless, though, I went down there, and then that's also where I met my wife. I've been to those places like 4 times, it seems like. And I remember when we met there, they told us that you weren't supposed to go out with anybody that you met in any of these places, and we sort of knew we were sort of mutual fuck-ups to begin with. But we cleared it. They had a board of directors or whatever, and they said we could date or some shit if we kept the plant alive or something. And I guess we probably still have the plant or whatever. I don't know. But I remember, I'll tell you something else. You want to hear something weird? And this is true. And you know, you're not supposed to talk about who you meet in these places, but this person I'm telling you about already said they were at this place. So the first time that I went to one of them, like, I don't want to take drugs anymore, can you make me some vegetable soup, or like, place. And I was in there, and they have these little groups you get together in the daytime, and there was this one girl, and she kept telling my wife and I both that her husband was this famous, this is true, there's like a famous guy, my husband's famous. And we were like, well, that's great. And you weren't supposed to tell people who they were, so she would say to us, P.A., he said, he's a comedian, and his initials are P.H., and she told us that a million times. And we were great, that's great, P.H. But I remembered that, P.H. And then like a year later, I was on the road. I remember I was in El Paso, and I got out of the shower in the hotel room, and I walked in, and the television, it said, comedian Phil Hartman was shot to death in his house today by his wife. And in my head, I sat down and went, P.H. And like as soon as I could process P.H., man, there was her picture. Pow! And I said, and it was that chick from our little group, and she had killed herself too. That's like a real pick-me-up on New Year's Eve. I just thought of that off the cuff. I forgot that it was New Year's Eve when I dove into that. But that's pretty fucking weird, though. I mean, sad too, but it's got a little bit of a cable, late 40s and 50s stations on the cable network. What is that? Cold Case Files and shit like that. Anyway, this is a song I made up for my wife, and we met at this place. And I remember one other thing I'll add before I leave is they wouldn't let us listen to music in this place, but they would let the guys that they cook the food and shit, they could listen to music. And so I would go sit over there by where they were, and I would listen to songs and stuff. And then one day I saw my wife, she was smoking a cig, and I thought, she's a handsome girl over there, boy. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go over there and talk to her or something. And this is true. And I got shy about it, and I wrote some stuff down on the napkin of my meal. Some things I thought, well, I could say this, or I could say this, I could walk over and say this. And I wrote it all down, and then when I looked up from my napkin, she was gone. And so I went back there the next day thinking she would be there. And that day I went up and I talked to her, and we went to a movie, and we got married and everything. And now we travel around together all the time. But that stuff I wrote down, honestly, I had this jean coat on, and I put the napkin in my jacket, and I didn't use that jacket again until like 7 months later, and by that time we were living together. And I went out and I had that jacket on again. I pulled that napkin out, and it was the first thing that I had written down that day that we met, and I made these chords up to go with it. There you sit all by yourself. You're trying to quit like everybody else. Cigarettes, smoke in your eyes, see a few regrets in there too. Hey there, lonely girl, have I got a lonely boy for you? Like a sunny day someplace else, the music plays, but it don't help. Through the haze you roll your eyes. Every day I wonder what you see. Hey there, lonely girl, I think you're the only girl for me. You're the only girl in this whole wide world. Only throw your pearls at me. Here I sit, I'm all by myself. I'm trying to quit something else. Cigarettes, smoke in my eyes. I got a bunch of regrets too. Hey there, lonely girl, have I got a lonely boy?